Hi there, Barb Teachblade Reynolds here, talking about the Teach Two Law Firms initiative that I have established, and for a good cause. I have heard the underpinnings of uh, quite a few of the lawyers within the legal community speak to the issue of the cumbersome nature now of paralegals. They are no longer the branch that affords the body of the any community the ability to obtain affordable legal services. That is no longer the issue in the legal community. What it appears to be now is the threat that paralegals and legal document assistants, the competent ones, of course, the threat that they pose to the legal community so far as attorneys are concerned. And that, as an LDA and paralegal for major law firms, including two United States presidential law firms, so I'm clearly competent. The idea that we pose a threat and therefore there should be some type of action, commensurate action, to run resistance with that threat, because anybody that is threatened certainly is going to position themselves for that threat to no longer exist. And that is a concerning statement that I read, which spawned the Teach Two Law Firms initiative. And what is that? It's an initiative whereby the narrative will get out nationwide that there is a fundamental breakdown in legal education generally and paralegal education specifically when it comes to the absolute and utter failure to teach law office practice skills as a component part of the education process of law. That process, that critical component of law office practice skills, has never been taught in the history of law schools. And of course, the paralegal schools followed suit, and they didn't teach it either. Well, being a paralegal, and my reputation is on the line with some of the major law firms in this country, it behooved me to not only teach from the book, which is the theory of law, but to teach as a component, critical component of the education process, law office practice skills. How you prepare an entire divorce. How do you prepare a petition? How do you prepare a summons? How do you prepare financial declarations? How do you prepare a marital settlement agreement? How do you prepare the final judgment of dissolution of marriage? How do you prepare a complaint and a summons in a civil action? How do you prepare responsive pleadings? How do you prepare discovery? How do you prepare law in motion? Motions to compel, motions to produce, requests for admission. How do you prepare a contract? You understand, once the student understands the principles of an offer, of an acceptance, of definite and certain terms, and of consideration, now you've got to take that theory in that book and apply it to a real world law office application so that that student can understand this is what a contract has to look like. This is the number of promises it has to be in a contract. It has to state the venue. It has to state what if there is a question about it. Do we go to arbitration? Do we go to court? It has to have those definite and certain terms in addition to the offer and the acceptance and the consideration. It has to be adequate consideration. Students need to understand how to prepare real world contracts, real world divorces, real world revocable living trusts, real world Chapter 7 bankruptcies, real world Chapter 13 bankruptcies in the classroom, so that when they leave the classroom and transition into the law firm, they are practicing paralegals that those attorneys can deploy at that point to continue to make money for the law firm, to continue to make money to pay the paralegals, so that everything prospers. There's a smooth transition. But the fracture that occurred 30 years ago, as far as I'm concerned, because that's how many decades I taught law office practice skills as a critical component of the education process. But so many didn't. Why? Because they had not been in a law firm. They didn't know about the procedural practice end of it. So why in God's name are they even in a law school trying to teach law? And the same thing applies to law schools. Now we saw in 2012 that you had students riding in the street, law students. Can you imagine law students riding in the streets of New York because they can't find a job? They couldn't find a job because they were never taught law office practice skills in school. And the paralegals are in the same condition, which is why you take the money, you capture the teachers and the administrators, they capture the money. And once that occurs, you leave them to fend for themselves, or you've got teachers like myself who have to take on that responsibility to not only teach them the theory in the book, but how to apply it in a real world application, because that is what lawyers expect. They have a very real and legitimate expectancy interest that these schools that their taxpayer money is funding through financial aid will net them as end users. Lawyers are the end users of these paralegals, that they will be competent and productive. Well, of course, mine are. But those teachers that did not teach that critical component have students going through revolving doors, have students that they are the threat if there's ever a threat. Those lawyers that are coming out of school that have no practical law office experience, or either in school or otherwise, they are the threat, not the competent ones like myself who are out here helping the community, helping people, especially in a town that I've lived in for 44 years where the Union Pacific still goes to the middle of town at noon every day. So these are lawyers that won't come here because they can't afford their Mercedes and their mansions on the hill. But be that as it may, you need to, don't kill the messenger, but you need to go get with me and support this initiative to teach to the law firms, not teach to the prophets, but teach to the law firms, so that all of the seats in the classroom will be filled, just like mine were for 30 years. They didn't get it. That the way in which to keep the seats filled is to show these students how they will have the practical knowledge they need to go into a law firm and be hired immediately. That's how you do it. And these ivory towers of administrators who don't do anything but polish their nails or whatever they're doing in there, the result has not manifested in the legal community, that what they are doing in these law schools and these paralegal schools is translating into competent paralegals, and they know it. So get behind this initiative. When you see Teach to the Law Firms initiative, and you want to, on social media, I will post things about it and how we're doing. Support that, because this is what is taking us in the right direction in the 21st century. 21st century education. That is what we need. The horse and buggy of the 20th century education and 30 years before that, it's got to stop, and stop now. Thanks for listening. You guys have a great day. And as always, make each day your masterpiece. Take care. Bye-bye.